a long time. I hope not.
No.
No, it's okay. We usually wait a lot longer for Matt.
Who's Matt again? Was he a host of this podcast at some point?
Some guy claims that this is his podcast, but I don't know.
Okay.
Work for Europe, baby.
All right, guys, here we are again. Another episode. This week we got Matt isn't here, which seems to be a common occurrence here on the WFI Europe podcast. But anyway, we got a guest this week. We're gonna skip right over what we did this week. But I do have a funny story. So Albert, I'm sure you've heard of Ultim handle material before. You know what that is, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's like a almost translucent, like an amber colored material. I guess CNC people use it a lot for machining work and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I had somebody ask if I could get a hold of it. Have you ever tried to buy it, or have you ever used it before?
No, haven't. No.
So I contacted a couple suppliers trying to get a quote, and I'm like, for some reason it's only available in 620 by 1200, which is like 1200 is the long side of a Euro pallet, and then the width, like half the width of a pallet. That's the biggest sheet you can get. So I'm like, give me 50 sheets in 6 mil and 50 sheets in 8 mil, and send me a quote shipped to my door and everything. Guess what the quote is on this shit? This stuff is so crazy expensive.
I have no idea. How many sheets again?
50 sheets of each. So it's like 25 sheets the size of a pallet of each size. So 50 sheets altogether. 32,000 euros.
I would have said 10. Okay, but
Jesus Christ. I'm like, did you make a mistake maybe with a comma here? Because when I ordered G10, there's way different prices. Well, why is plastic so expensive?
And why is that?
I don't know. I mean, there's really nothing special about it. I guess they use it in the electrical industry, and it's good up to like 170 degrees, which hopefully
good.
Nobody's knives are getting that hot, but good for grinding. It doesn't melt on you.
Yeah. Where do you get it from?
You got to buy it from Ultim, from the people who make it.
Okay, directly from.
Yeah. Crazy.
So
expensive.
you're not gonna buy a pallet.
I bought some, but I didn't buy 50 sheets of each size.
Okay.
It's insane. We'll see how it goes. It'll be interesting because it's hard to get in Europe. So
are they going to be in your shop as well, or is it just for your customer?
No, I'm gonna put it in the shop. I got 6 mil, 8 mil, and 30 millimeter blocks, so you can do hidden tangs and shit. I think a hidden tang was really cool because if you make a nice neat tang like I don't know, like Kamon does, and you can see the detail work through it, it'll be cool.
Nice.
So anyway, back to our guests. We got Christoph Wild from Wild Works joining us tonight. Christoph, welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for letting me do this.
Yeah, nice to have you.
Yeah, very exciting to be on a podcast.
So what you've said, it's your second time on a podcast, right? You've been on 63 HRC, and this is your second time.
Yes, it's the second time. I was not requested as often as Kamona or Huber. They seem to be like very not that rare podcast guests. But very nice to be here and share some of the things that go through my head, I guess.
Yeah, so I've been following you on Instagram, but I don't know a whole lot about you. You joined us for the charity project.
Yeah, exactly. For Klingen for Gutes, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of stumbled in there, I think, because of I know Mershad from Shear Knives. He's a good friend of mine, and he visited me in my workshop actually a couple of times already. And I think he suggested that I should take part in it, and then I don't quite remember exactly how it went down, but a lot of a lot of people in the knife making community are I'm better known to maybe, and so I joined there, and it was quite a nice experience, to be honest. I really liked the cause, and I also liked a lot of the knives that were submitted. Yeah,
that was a cool setup. We working on doing it again this year. We got a blade design drawn up by Ben Camone, so I think it's going to be a cool one this year. We're going to change a little bit of the
Oh,
parameters and hopefully get some of that information out to the makers soon, because the show this year I think is it October?
October,
yes,
yeah.
it was moved actually to the middle or the end of October, I think. Quite a bold move, in my opinion, because the people are just somehow used to like the scheduling of the knife shows around the year. Yeah, should be interesting.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Albert, do you know why they changed it? Is it only because of Mother's Day, or what was the reason?
I have no idea. I wanted to ask you guys why they
Yeah.
moved it to October. I have no idea. Maybe it's too warm. I mean, it's always very hot in there.
That could be the case. It was really, really quite hot and so loud. But I think it could be connected to the scheduling with the blade shows or other bigger European knife shows. I'm not entirely sure. But Solingen is always very far, very far to drive, and I didn't attend last year. So I was there in 2023, and this year I'm still not sure if I want to attend as an exhibitor, but it would be tempting to go there just to see all the people and see all the knives and all the the materials.
So how come you decided not to join last year? I mean, is it
Well,
too stressful, or?
It was very stressful to go there the year before, and it collided with the birthday of my granddad. And he had let's say he has a special place in my heart. And I wanted to be there and celebrate his birthday with the family, because I have my workshop is on his property. He has an old farm building, and this is where I do all of my knife making and all of my grinding, and especially forging the blades. I don't currently live there. I live in Innsbruck, in Austria, and when I go home, I always like spending time there. So this was important to me, and it was also it would have been a huge hustle to go up Solingen for one weekend, because it's like 800 or 900 kilometers from where I live currently.
Yeah, it's about the same drive I got. It's a long one.
Yeah, it's a long one.
So, but you live in Innsbruck because you moved there for your studies, right?
Yes, I did study psychology. First in Erlangen, it's a town near Nuremberg in Germany, and this is close to where I grew up. So I was able to spend a lot of time in the village that I grew up in. But for my master's degree, I wanted to go to another place. And also, it's when studying psychology, it's really hard to get into a master's class, because it's all very strictly regulated by the grades you got. And so I decided to go out of the country and try it in Austria, and I never regretted it. It was a really great time studying here, and now I'm working here. So I finished my studies last year, actually 2023, and now I'm working here, doing work with people who do have mental illnesses, and it's like in the rehabilitation sector. And the knife making goes alongside with it. I do have how do you call it? It's a Verein in German.
Like a club, right?
Yeah, maybe more like a club. Yes, and we share a workshop. It's usually used for woodworking. It has a lot of very high grade woodworking tools in it, like big table saw and big band saw, and a lot of people who are professional woodworkers did create it. And there was one knife maker who rented a room in the basement, and I got to know him through just mouth-to-mouth propaganda, I guess. When there are people making knives and you know a lot of people, then somebody knows someone, and it goes on like this. And so I got to know this guy, and he kindly invited me, and we spent a very cool night building knives together. And then I joined the club, and now I can do my knife making there. But I only really do the grinding and the handle work in Innsbruck. I do have to forge all of my blades at home, where I do have my forging equipment, because the space in the basement down there, it's not suited to have like bigger forging equipment. So we just have a little anvil.
So is that how you got started in knife making, or were you already making knives before you met him?
No, I did make knives long time before that. I started, I think, it must be 7 or 8 years ago, and I moved to Innsbruck 4 years ago. So I did make knives when I went there, and so I always did my Damascus forging at home, and then I brought the forged and heat-treated blades with me to Innsbruck, and then I finished it there, because I spent a lot of time in Innsbruck and not that much time at home, so I did not want to go without knife making.
Yeah.
But this was a really lucky coincidence for me, but it's because it's very rare to have like a pretty well-equipped knife-making shop that is open for rent, and only a few hundred meters away from where you live in a city, and it costs like 30 euros per month to be a member of this club. So it's really I got really lucky with that, and well, it's not the nicest building and not the prettiest workshop, but it totally does what I needed to do, and that's really nice.
Yeah, it's better than hand sanding at the kitchen table in your apartment for sure.
Well, I do actually do a lot of Japanese stone polishing in my shared flat in my room. I have 12 square meters where I live, and everything is packed full of knives. And practically like students live. It's nothing fancy, and I don't have a lot of space, but I really have some really high value Japanese natural stones that I am not comfortable with leaving in the Werkstatt, in the workshop of the club. So I always leave them at home, and I work on my little desk in my student's room. And it always looks like shit. Everywhere splashes, and my computer is full of grinding dust.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But it's the setup that I'm currently able to work with. But I really dream about having like all the Japanese stone polishers. They always have. You don't need much to do this. You only basically need a sink that is only used for that, because it gets dirty, and but you always have running water and clean water, so you can look at the blade and polish and repolish and doing things like that. And it's really difficult if you don't have running water. And it's difficult to clean afterwards. So I really dream about just having one sink where I can do my polishing. You have to start somewhere.
What's the advantage of using stones to polish a blade, let's say, compared to sandpaper, like most of us do?
Well, I really have you tried belt finishing? I guess you have. Like really fine belt finishing.
Yeah.
Do you when you cut with a knife that is belt finished compared to something that is like hand sanded and then etched, do you personally feel a difference?
And when we etch a blade, like a Damascus blade, we finish it up sometimes to 3,000 or 5,000 grit, so they're almost polished. And we sometimes even polish the blades in between the etching cycles, right? So but with a buffing wheel. But what's the difference between a stone and like, let's say, a very high grit sandpaper?
Well, for me, it's really I did not believe in a difference between those methods of finishing, let's say. But then I tried it, and there are really subtle differences in how, especially kitchen knives. I'm only talking about kitchen knives because I basically don't do anything else. But when you cut through food, I think it has something to do with the directions that the scratches are in. That's why I asked for the belt finish, because on a belt finish the scratches go vertically along the blade, versus with a hand finish they go horizontally. And I think you can also notice a little bit of a difference in this when it comes to cutting feel. And on the other hand, the stones, they have another scratch pattern. They are really fine. Maybe they seal up the the polished material differently than it is with sandpaper. I don't know what it is exactly, but it has a very subtle difference, and I do like the stone finished blades. I find they cut nicer. Also, just from the way you are working with those tools, you create a very subtly convex edge, and it does not hide any imperfections. So if you have any kind of low spots or any irregularities in your grind from the belt grinder, you notice it immediately after you go to like your 180 grit stone. And what this does is it really shows you where you have to remove material to really get like a plain bevel. I don't know if plain is the correct word here, to be sure, but it does not have any low spots and
even bevel. I know what you mean.
Very even. And the low spots are something that is easy to cover up with the sandpaper, for example. If you use like a little bit of a softer backing on your hand sanding stick, you can really cover it up, and nobody really notices it until they hold it into the light and really look closely, maybe. But with a Damascus, Damascus is really the easiest thing to finish. As you said, you can just basically send it to 400 grit and then etch it and use a polishing wheel. And if you have the right compounds, it will be shiny and beautiful and look like really, really gorgeous. But it's actually not that time intensive, I think.
The difference you feel is it more performance wise, or it's just the feeling of the way that it cuts?
Well,
I guess they're kind of the same.
Yeah, the feeling is somehow smoother. Also, you can like really without any problem create a zero edge. This is something that if you're only working with a belt grinder, it's more difficult, I think, unless you like water-cooled belt grinders, which I don't, because they are a mess. So I personally do grind when I do some stone finishing. I let the edge thickness, I grind it down, but not too much, and then I do the rest of the material removing with the stone, so it stays cool and the HRC is not decreased by excessive heat that is introduced to the blade. And you can like remove material really until there's a burr on the edge, with only the two blade sides running into each other, basically like a Scandi grind. And this is for performance, this is really the best you can ask for, I think. And this also improves performance by a little bit, I guess.
What's the grit progression on these stones you're using? Because you said you're starting with 180 or something?
Yes,
right?
it depends. I have a 140 Atoma plate. It's a diamond coated plate, and the diamond plate it really leaves very, very deep scratches. So if I it's really difficult to tell. First of all, I forged the blade. After forging the blade, I forge it really thin. I forge the geometry as far as I can. Then I do the profiling, and then I go to the belt grinder and grind it down to like till I'm happy with the Shinogi line, and I'm happy with the thickness on the edge, which is about 0.1 to 0.2 millimeters at this point. Am I right? Yes, 0.1 millimeters, 0.2 millimeters. The rest of the material I can remove with the stone. So after that, I go to the when I have even bevels, then I can go to the 180 grit synthetic stone. But if I do have to remove major, well, I used the word before. I don't remember it right now. Not flat spots, low spots. When I have low spots on the bevel, then I go to the Atoma 140, and it is a really, really aggressive stone. So you can even out the bevels first, and then I'm just progressing to a 400 grit, 800 grit, 1000 grit, and then I start using my Japanese stones. Well, actually, I do have different grits from 1400 grit till man, I don't know. I have a Honyama stone. It has like 15,000 grit, but it doesn't really work with it's not. Those stones are natural, so they don't really match one grit perfectly every time. So there's like some finer abrasive in it, and there's something that's more porous, and then there's the slurry, and you have to work with the slurry on that is created by abrading the stone in the water, and with that you get your contrast in your cladding material versus the core material. And I think this is really what does make those blades unique, and this is really what differentiates it from like something. If I make a wrought iron senmai, I can easily hand sand it to 1500 or 2000 grit and then polish it and then etch it, and it will look a certain way, but will never have the detail that is brought from polishing with a natural stone. And I think this is really appealing to me.
And how does it compare to sandpaper time-wise? So are you faster with these stones?
No. No.
Yeah, that's what I figured, but how much longer does it take using stones?
How much longer? Well, actually, I have not done a lot of hand sanding in the last few months. So I'm not really sure. Hand sanding is something that I got really fast at with all of the blades that I did, I'd say, but doing the stone work at least takes twice as long for me right now. But I really only started. If somebody is really good at it, I think they can do it much faster. I just started stone polishing like, well, it is already almost 3 years ago, but now then I did not have the right grits and I did not have the right stones, and now I'm nearing a stage where I can say I have a solid setup of stones that I can use, and I don't have to spend a lot of time per stone. And then it takes me for a normal Giotto, I think 2 to 3 hours to complete a polish. But only if it's like the rough forged texture ones that don't have a lot of blade surface area that needs to be polished. So only the lower third to lower half of the blade is actually polished. If I would do a full polish, it would take a lot longer. Trust me, it's a nightmare, and it's also really tricky when forging and grinding on the belt grinder. So I'm following a lot of Japanese makers right now, and it's really like a rabbit hole. I think it's the rabbit hole of the rabbit holes. You can sink in so deep into these into these topics, and this is really difficult to understand how some of the things are done. And they are very particular things. So you can say, why do you have this additional stone? It gives this little bit of haze to the line that runs between the cladding and the core steel. But for some reason, it's really important.
And I'm sure everybody has their own style of stones that they like to use. And I can imagine it's a huge rabbit hole. But I have a question about the stones that you use. And when you say stones, is it more like sharpening stones, or you mean these die maker stones that They're like 15 centimeters long and two
Yes.
centimeters wide or something like that. What kind of stones are these actually?
Those are bench stones. I don't use those die maker stones. They are synthetic, I think. The die maker stones, which is some people use them like they would use a hand sanding stick, and I actually have never tried them because, well, basically I have never felt the need to do so till now. It would be interesting to see if they work faster than sandpaper, for example. But the stones that I use are like usually they are like the typical format that you can buy synthetic stones in, and but the natural stones come maybe in a little bit larger or in a little bit smaller. I also have like copper stones. Copper. This means that a stone is like an irregular size. It's like in German we say Bruchstück. I don't know how to really translate it to English. Basically, a piece of the stone that has the right material consistency but does not fit in the format that it's usually cut to, and then they have a beautiful live edge that natural stone outside, and then on one side they are flattened so you can work on them, and they are really beautiful also. So it's just like it has some decorative value to it. And this is what I like.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I bought about 2 years ago at the knife show in Solingen some of these die maker stones from Rockblade. It's a company in Italy, and when I do stuff in Apex Ultra, I use the stones because it's way quicker. But I definitely don't have all the details that you're talking about. I use them because I can get a scratch out quicker than hand sanding.
Absolutely, yes.
For sure.
I can imagine that they really work especially well on really hard steels. Well, you can also, when working with stones, you can with the Japanese stones, you also really notice notice the differences in hardness in the core steel, because usually I do like sandmine construction and to have very soft cladding material, and there the scratches really polish out nicely. And if you use simple carbon steels like the Shirogami, the Japanese carbon steels, or also like
blue paper, white paper, that kind of stuff.
Yes,
Yeah.
paper white, but the blue paper too. It also has like the tungsten carbides, and this is exactly what Apex Ultra and like 12519 and 2562, which I do also like to use on my chef's knife. They really do scratch. They do not remove, the stones do not remove the scratches that easy from those steels, and you can tell a very distinct difference in hardness and how the blade feels when you polish it. It takes a little bit more time. Actually, a lot of people who work with stones prefer the rather clean carbon steels that don't have a lot of alloying elements going in them. That's why, because it doesn't take that long to finish.
Yeah, you can really feel the difference in the stone. It bite, like you said, if you're working with the sandmine, it bites into the steel different. You can tell when you've hit the cladding material.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people use the stones that what's that called when you make the hamons and stuff. I think if you're making a true hamon, that you can really bring it out using stones. I don't know what the reasoning is behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also the stones really do remove different hardnesses in material in different ways, and this is why it gives the contrast with the sandmine, with the softer claddings, but also the hamon, where your martensitic and your non-martensitic steel face meets. There's like this layer that is kind of hazy when you polish it, and this is because there's different hardnesses in it. I don't know the exact science behind that, and I'm sure a lot of people are more knowledgeable than I am. But from what I understand, it's because of different hardnesses in the steel and also the different composition in the matrix that the stone really gives a different shine to the different parts of the blade. And you can also have a lot more details with stone polishing in Honyaki knives compared to etching them. And yeah, but there are really people who spend their whole lives perfecting this. And I'm far away from that. I actually never really did a hamon on a knife. It's something that I would really want to try someday, but yeah, I didn't come around to do it.
Albert, have you ever tried to make a hamon yet, or had one happen by accident?
Yeah, not on purpose. I had one happen on accident. And then back then, this was when I started out, and I didn't know what it was back then. And I tried to sand it out, but it's kept by using finer and finer sandpaper, but it just stayed in there for obvious reasons. I was quenching not fast enough, so that's when it happened. So yeah. So, but I've never done one on purpose. No.
What steel did you use? Do you remember? Seems to be a long time ago.
Yeah, I don't know. It was some cheap carbon steel, because back then I was cheap and I tried to save money.
Yeah.
when buying steel, so I bought some high carbon steel. I forgot the steel. It was annoying because I tried to get rid of it, but I didn't know.
Called the distributor and asked what's going on with the steel, and
at some point you figure out that you screwed up and it's not the steel's fault. So
it's just the way you hardened it. Yeah, I made one. I used 1084 because after doing some reading, it was supposedly one of the easiest ones to get a hamon with, and it worked out okay. I mean, with the knowledge I have now in polishing it out and stuff, I could probably get it to show up better. But there's some people out there that make some crazy hamons, and they look great. It's like a whole nother art.
Did you use clay back then?
Yeah, I used hardening clay and did an edge quench first. And
I actually did try it once, but it wasn't really successful. The tip did not want to harden, but I used the wrong steel. I think it was 12210, which is called silver steel in Germany. It's like 1.2% carbon, so it should theoretically do hamons nicely, but I never got it to show up. Maybe I used the wrong clay. It did differentially harden though. It was softer on the spine than on the edge. And I did quench it in water, so I don't really know what went wrong there. But yeah, well, well, maybe try it another time. I think the 26C3 steel should be really good for hamon. I heard a lot of people liking it for that.
So you said high carbon. So 1084. I'm not sure what the German version is, but it's only 0.84% carbon. And for whatever reason, all the reading that I did, that was like the easiest like starting steel to get a hamon out of. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty low carbon content.
Mm-hmm. I think what it really depends on, from my knowledge, and don't quote me, I'm really not the most knowledgeable person about it, but I think it that adding alloying elements like vanadium and tungsten and chromium, they are not beneficial for hamons. So the less alloying elements are in the steel, the more easy it is to see a line. I did see people using like C60 and got a hamon with it. So and also the traditional Japanese Tamahagane steel, it varies a lot in carbon content. Some of it is very high carbon, but it's not that homogeneous unless you fold it like really, really often. But it wasn't always the case. And they do show some really beautiful hamons. So maybe I have to do some more reading on that. Maybe a podcast is not the best place to be talking about something that you don't really know. But well, I hope when somebody out there has a lot more knowledge about it, please contact me. I'm happy to learn.
Some of our listeners to school us on the topic.
Yeah, probably.
some of the knives that I've seen you make are maybe not as like all the other knife makers out there. You seem to use a lot more traditional materials. And what is like your inspiration for making the knives that you make? You seem to make what you wanted and not really following the crowd like most makers are.
Well, what do you mean by traditional? What do you mean by traditional materials? Like, I don't use stainless steel that much. That's right. I do
Yeah,
like making knives from things that.
yeah, but you make daggers and swords from time to time,
Yes,
and
from time to time, yes, I do that. But basically, just what I have laying around. I don't really like buying a lot of stuff. Um, and well, it is not, at least I do it, of course. I do buy my steels and I don't use like recycled steels for high quality knives. I would not do that, but I like to incorporate like, something that is unique and that I just found laying around somewhere or something like that. I do all of my of the cladding material that I use for my sandmine knives, which is almost always wrought iron. This is just something I pick up on on the floor. Basically, I do a lot of
mhm.
hiking. I do a lot of biking, and also just when I cycle home from work. Once I found like an old wine barrel standing on a basically some farming land just
Mhm.
outside of Innsbruck, and it has those very very rusty old barn barrel, those rings that go around it. And
Yeah.
it was very thin stock, so I just bent it and put it on the on the back of my bike and cycled it home. And after that, it was like 1 millimeter thick, but it had like perfect dimensions to stack it up and and re-weld it. And then I didn't even clean it. I left all the rust on and fired up the forge really hot and made like a wrought iron refined wrought iron Damascus billet and used it on the cladding on a knife. And I will never forget that I did that, because I see that knife and I see this particular pattern in the wrought iron and I know, well, I just found it somewhere laying around. And on the other occasion that I remember was like I did a hike and it was like on a mountain 2,100 meters uh, up, and we found an old cabin that some guy in the mountains lived in, and it was
Yeah.
completely burnt down. So, um, but but it was basically the foundation. It was very pretty recognizable, and there was a lot of old iron parts from an old stove. And I just had my hiking backpack with me, and I packed it up with like the worst thing that you can carry down a mountain, which is like 3 to 5 kilos of wrought iron that is really rusty and really did make a terrible noise all the way down the mountain. But I reforged it into wrought iron cladding material for my plate, and I really like that idea of using those materials.
Yeah.
Maybe that's some kind of inspiration. I also collect a lot of things when I'm on vacation, and then I make a knife, maybe for myself, maybe for my girlfriend from it, and it's a perfect reminder of a nice time that we spent together. And I think this adds value to a knife much more than like buying a sheet of the fanciest high-tech steel, which then lasts maybe 2 to 3 hours longer till you have to resharpen it. But I don't really notice that.
Yeah, but you're talking about cladding material, so this is more aesthetics and for the story of the knife that you're
Absolutely.
making. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would never use something like this for like the edge, because I can't verify its steel. I can't really verify its composition and if it gets hard or not. I do use, of course, steels that I buy for the edge material. But I do like the carbon steels and the tool steels more than stainless, because well, it's I can forge weld it and I can forge well the others. And I do like forging and combining different materials. So this is what I really like.
And so Albert got a hold of an old railroad track before. I think I got a piece of it. Is that what that was from, the wrought iron, Albert?
Yeah, that's where we get most of our wrought iron from. Because there's this, it's called Isla Bahntrasse. That's an old train, or used to be an old train, railroad tracks back from the days of the monarchy. And these railroad tracks are all wrought iron, and they're huge. I mean, a railroad track, you get them like in 2 meters. So you have to cut them. It's shitloads of wrought iron. But you have to forge it first for obvious reasons, because it's all uneven and everything. So you have to somewhat refine it before you can use it as cladding material. But there's plenty of these railroad tracks around where we are, because the tracks was kind of close to where we are back in the days. Yeah. And people use these tracks for construction and everything. So there's like old houses where they used railroad tracks to put in the concrete and walls and whatever.
This is actually also the case in the farmhouse where my granddad lives. So they had pigs, and the shelter that the pigs were living in, it has the roof of it is completely constructed with old railroad tracks. But
Nice.
but it was they are slightly smaller than railroad tracks are today. So it was like for a smaller railroad or some smaller carts. I don't know where it was used, but it's also very pretty wrought iron.
So you've been cutting your grandpa's roof up and taking pieces around?
No. He had some spares laying around his yard.
Yeah, but you said
yeah. Go
that
ahead.
you didn't even clean them up when you forge them. That doesn't become a problem getting them to stick or having inclusions or anything, or does that not matter in the cladding material?
Well, it definitely gives you problems when forging them together for the first time, especially when it's very, very thin stock, because then it doesn't really stick on the outside, and maybe I have to remove 1 or 2 layers from the outside, and the center it's stuck together. But then you basically have to use more heat with wrought iron. It does not really you don't lose the carbon if you overheat it, so that's not a problem. You just add a lot of heat and in my case a lot of borax flux. then you stick it under the hammer, and usually it holds up. And then you fold it a couple more times. After that, there are not really there are not delaminations anymore in the wrought iron. Usually you can forge weld it back together, even if it's really, really dirty. But what I noticed, and this is actually kind of cool, if you polish it on a stone, you see the rust as little inclusions between the layers, and it doesn't get a homogeneous piece. You can differentiate the layers just by the rust that you forge back into the billet. And I actually think it's kind of cool.
What were you going to say, Albert, before that?
I mean, if you do it like this, it gives the knife some character, right? If you have like a story, you can tell like this was a railroad track, or this was like from an old wine barrel. So this makes the piece even more unique, I think, than just using like bought wrought iron or some other kind of cladding material. So that's what people like when they buy wrought iron knives from us, or we use like a tank barrel to do as a cladding material. And that's, I mean, some guy from the military bought a chef knife in which we used a tank barrel as cladding. So it gives the knife, I think, some character immediately. So, and it's also, it makes it sometimes easier to sell a knife if you have a story behind it.
Absolutely. I this year in autumn I hiked a small mountain here in Innsbruck. It's called Helchenberg, and there's a new cross on the peak of the mountain, and the old one was from wood. The new one is from steel, but the wooden one also had those brackets that hold it together. Yeah. And some dude took the old took the old cross from the peak and used the wood for his campfire. So everything that was left was the metal brackets holding together the cross. This is also what I what I plan on doing some Senmai with, because it was actually the first mountain that I ever hiked living here, and it has some special value. Yes.
Some dude, you mean some asshole that would be nice to have the wood too to use as a handle to go along with it.
No, I wouldn't have had a saw with me to cut it up, and it would have been too big. So I'm not that mad.
Just carry it on your back, nobody would notice.
Oh, yeah, the dude with the long hair and the cross on his back. Yeah, exactly.
The same.
Some people turned religious that day. Well, yeah, but on the other hand, I think you have to be careful when doing this, because it also has to be done with some taste, and combining the materials after that with because the materials are very rough, and they are really you can mess it up a lot more quickly when you're using these materials, and you have to be very strict and precise in your execution. I think if you not just having a story alone does not really make a good knife.
Of course not.
this is what yeah. I think a lot of people always use that for marketing tactics, like, oh, this is from here and this is from there. But the rest has to be really good as well, and then it really makes a continuously nice piece that transports a little bit of a story, but also really good performance. And this is what I strive for with my designs and with my material choices.
What was your most challenging project? Because when we first met in Solingen, it was 2023. I think.
Yes.
You brought this huge sword with you.
Yes.
Was this your most challenging project, or are there any other crazy projects you did?
I would still say that the sword was my most challenging project, and I am proud that I did it, but it also has so many flaws. I do not regret to have done it, but if I would do it again, I would do it a lot differently, I think. But I think this is what makes a great first project, to really learn something with it. And in terms of sheer amount of work that went into it, it was definitely the biggest and most challenging part. The whole thing with stone polishing, I think, is I would say rate second, but it's not like one project that I did it for, but just committing to learning something, or to strive to learn something, or get better at a technique that is really, really demanding and takes a lot of time and takes a lot of power, not power of will to read about all those things. I think this is also something that was really challenging. But just from the project, it is definitely the sword, and I do have to admit that it's still not finished. I have never wrapped the sheath in leather. I still need to do that. It hangs over my bed and looks pretty and unfinished.
How long did it take you to build it, or how many hours did go into it?
Well, I do never count hours.
No, but give us a
months.
give us a rough estimate. I mean,
a rough estimate would be about. Man, I know I can't really tell. I know that it took me about 4 days to make the Damascus, and then it was 1 day forging out the blade, and then it was like a whole day just heat treating it, because this was really actually the biggest challenge. And then straightening it also took a whole day, and it's still not completely straight, because I messed it up some point in the tempering process, and it was uneven, and I never really got out the bend. Then grinding it well, grinding wasn't. I was really afraid of grinding and hand sanding, but on sword blades, I did not use the fanciest steel. I used like C70, and I tempered it to about 53 to 55 HRC. So it was actually a dream to hand sand. So I never regretted that steel choice. And after that, doing the fittings and the handle was a few days. So, but it's like when I say a few days, it's not like huge work days from 8 to 6 p.m. It's more like, well, I have a little break with my grandma drinking coffee in between, and then I go home for for an hour and eat my lunch with my family. Because when I'm in my blacksmith shop, it's usually like a little vacation for me. It's not in my daily life. It's like I'm taking those few days off, and then I go home and I do the things that I like, and I spend time with the people that I like. So it's really hard to estimate the time that went into it. But I remember because my good buddy Andreas Abele, he joined me for the day that I was heat treating, and he actually forged a sword blade in the same day and heat treated it, but from monosteel, so it was a lot quicker. And it was just a great time building the stove for heat treating it, because we only have those little devil's forges, gas forges, and mine has a single burner, and his was a double burner, and we stacked them on top of each other and put a piece of pipe inside so we can hang the blades in there and get an even heat on them. And building the setup took the better part of the day, and then after that we had some schnapps and put it into the fire, and it like exploded a little bit, and it was a lot of fun. And then we heat treated them, and worked out okay.
The Devil's Forge is the Amazon Forge, right? You can get off Amazon, I think.
Some guy in Lithuania builds them and sells them through eBay exclusively.
Oh, eBay,
yeah. But it was like the OG cheap forge, and then Amazon copied it and had like the hexagonal or forging body stuff. But the Devil Forge, it's not the most high quality thing you can get, but I think it was the first thing that I really bought in terms of gas forges, and it lasted me many years. I only just installed a new one, and I did all of my Damascus forging, and I did a lot of Damascus. You can check my Instagram account. Everything that was on this Instagram account was forged in this Devil's Forge, in the little one with the single burner. Also the sword blade, which is 90 centimeters long and has a 30 centimeter handle. It was forged in the single burner Devil's Forge. It was not the most easy thing to do, but it lasted and it held up. And now I bought a new one because it was really just too small.
So what's the new forge that you got now?
A double burner Devil's Forge.
Upgrade.
I'm taking baby steps. But I do have a really good professionally built ribbon burner laying around in my workshop, but I never came across to building a forge body for it, and I do plan on doing this. But that's a little bit of a downside of having to move so much in between the places, between Innsbruck and where I live. It's 400 kilometers, and if I do drive there, I don't want to spend the time building a new forge. I just want to do the thing that I love, and that is making knives and forging new blades. And then I just thought, if I should have more time in the future, then I will build a new bigger forge with a professional burner setup and everything. But as long as this is my reality of living, I will just buy a new forge, and I'm happy if it gets hot enough to do what I need to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's always a trade-off of where you're gonna spend your time. Well, if you can buy good tools that are gonna last you, sometimes it's it's actually cheaper in the long run to get you going instead of spending all your time messing around with
Absolutely.
tools. Yeah.
I have actually a huge investment coming up. It is the most expensive thing that I have ever bought, and it goes directly into the forge. Because last year I ordered the Oliver Tobin rolling mill, and
Nice.
I'm really looking forward to using this, and it set me back like a huge amount of money.
Yeah, Albert just bought one of those, or has one of those,
Oh,
so he knows
really?
all about that.
Really?
Yeah, we bought it. Yeah, but we bought it like last year. We were among the first who, I think, the first batch. We bought one of the first batch.
Oh man, please don't tell me it sucks.
I'm not gonna tell you that it sucks. No.
Well, I actually used it once and it was really nice. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bought it. But Oliver actually visited the Messertage in Olching in 2023. And this is like the knife show that I do frequent the most because I'm also a member of the Messerarbeitskreis Olching, or MAK. They are like South German group of knife makers. And Oliver was there and exhibited his rolling mill, and I was able to forge some Damascus there with it, and wow, it really got power. And I think when you have the limited time in the workshop like I do, this really increases your productivity because it gives you you don't have to stand for 1 hour in the forge to stretch out a Damascus billet. It's like 20 minutes, and then you can restack. And this gives me the freedom to experiment more with Damascus patterns also, which is actually I think the main reason because why I got into the whole San Mai and stone polishing thing is because I don't really have continuous days of time where I can work on the elaborate Damascus billets, because I also always had to go back to Innsbruck and I don't have that much vacation per year. So I started to do more simpler forging projects with other finishing methods. But a few years ago, I did make a lot of very experimental and also very time-intensive Damascus blades.
Albert, are you making Damascus patterns with the rolling mill, or are you using it just to
No.
get your final thickness?
Final thickness, and for the surface, it makes a very nice surface because when you forge it out on a power hammer, you have this from the dies, you have all these dents and low spots in your Damascus billet, and then we get an even thickness and a very nice flat surface. Yeah, but if you can get the one with the DRO and not with the analog scale, Chris, if you can, because there's an upgrade kit with the DRO, because the DRO is much more precise. If you need precise thicknesses, that is. If you don't, then it doesn't really matter. But if you want to get precise thickness, then get the one with the DRO. I mean, there's an upgrade kit. You can also install it yourself, but it's not too trivial to do it yourself. So if you can still ask Oliver to install it, you might want to do that.
Okay. Well, I will have a talk with him in the next days.
The top roller moves a bit when you put a billet in there that's too thick, right? So it moves a bit, and so the scale that's on the side, the rolling mill, is not that accurate.
Okay.
Because if you set it to 3 millimeters, it jumps up. And if you have a DRO installed, you can see the actual thickness, because also the DRO goes up a bit if you put a billet in there, but then you know what the thickness is, right?
So this is more important if you later on want to surface grind it or something.
Yeah, if you need a billet that's like 2.5 millimeters thick for stock removal people, for instance.
If you're selling all your steel to knife material and you have to have a certain dimension.
I don't think that my career prospect is selling pre-made Damascus stock.
but for restacking and stuff, that's not really
yes, of course.
that important, because you just set it to 10 millimeters, and if it's 10.5 or 11 millimeters, it doesn't really matter, right? Because you have to grind off the forge scale anyway.
Absolutely.
And then it doesn't really matter. But I mean, when we do classes, we need precise dimensions, right? Because we roll the billets to final thickness for chef knives, let's say 2.5 millimeters, and they have to be like 2.5 millimeters and not 3 or maybe 3.5 or something like that, because that would be too thick for chef knife. So that's why we need that. And also because of Keith, because if our billets are not precise, then
I send him back.
he can be very annoying.
No, I mean that's also not a problem. You can grind it off, but you got to spend way more time grinding, and you got to use belts. And
you mean surface grind? Yeah, but then you're losing layers, right? If you want to have a 200 layer Damascus and you have to grind off like a third of your billet, then you're not
160
not
layers.
ending up with, exactly. Yeah. So no, but it's a good machine. Yeah, very useful one. But we only use it for final passes and final thickness and surface.
You have to say it's not comparable, the setup that I have in my shop with yours. You of course you can stretch out a billet in one heat under your big power hammer. This is not possible for me. I just have a 30 kilo old
you have a spring hammer, right?
Yes, it's a spring hammer. It's called the manufacturer was called Drax. He's from near Munich, and it's a quality hammer. I really like it, but I ran into some issues, and it's really sometimes it's an annoying machine. Also have this little 20-ton green forging press that every starting knife maker gets from Jens Lorenzen. And it's actually a really really useful and super cute machine because it's so tiny and does a lot of work for its size. But the possibility of just taking away 3 millimeters of thickness per pass through the rollers really would accelerate my workflow, and I don't have the space for like a bigger hammer. And I also do have neighbors, and I think they will appreciate when I do a lot of work on the rolling mill versus the hammer.
I mean, it's a super quiet machine.
Yes, it's a big benefit.
Yeah, but if you stretch your billet, you get like very flat layers, right? So you don't have the distortion in your Damascus that the hammer makes. Like with this,
yes.
I mean, it depends on what you want. If you want to have straight layers, then you can use the roll. That's why we use the rolling mill only for the final passes, because we don't want the Damascus pattern to be like stretched out and flat lines. We want to have the distortions from the hammer in there. So
yes, if you're talking about just layered Damascus, that's absolutely the case. But I think when you do like C layers or some kind of explosion pattern, it could be
a mosaic. Yeah,
it could be really, really beneficial if you don't have the distortion, because it's actually more annoying in the pattern if you distort it too much.
Okay, I know what I mean. Yeah.
This is also what I plan on doing, just to have like really square bars, for example, and then you can do a 4-way restack pretty efficiently and use it for this kind of work, because I don't really, when I make a knife, I'm not passionate about layered Damascus anymore. I do it a lot because a lot of people they want a Damascus knife, but they don't want to spend a lot of money on it. So I make them like a simple 200 layer knife, and it's really beautiful. You can, it's not like that I don't really like the looks of it or something. But when I do really want to experiment and have fun with the steel, then I think I want to do like something that's like an explosion, and then I do a lot of explosions that afterwards I do twist them and then expose the pattern this way. But also like combining it with some feathered elements or something like this. That's really cool. I do have a lot of, this is the other part, I do have a lot of crazy Damascus ideas in my head, but I know that when I do want to realize them, I need at least a week in the forge, which I don't have. But the ideas never die. Actually, there are a lot of new ones popping up all the time.
Christy, have you ever heard of Charlie Lionheart before? Do you follow him?
Yes, of course. Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, if you want to see some crazy mosaic Damascus, I'm sure that guy probably spends weeks putting together.
Yes. Also
the
hexagonal shapes, right?
Yeah,
why?
crazy.
It's really cool. It's really cool.
Because
I really love it, dude. Yes.
Yeah.
And also very, very, very cool handles. Those, oh my god, he's really the handle guy. And also he built one of my all-time favorite knives. He did this. The Damascus was actually not that complex, but it have not gone around to understanding how he did it. It has hearts in them. It's the Queen of Hearts knife.
Okay, yeah.
It has
I know that one. Yeah.
really, really pronounced heart shapes in the Damascus, and he just did it by manipulating a simply layered billet. I have no idea how it works. It has to incorporate a lot of lateral movement in the billet, but I would really, really like to recreate this pattern, but I have no idea how. And this rarely happens. Usually when I see a Damascus pattern, I can tell you at least how it has to be done somehow. But in this way, it's difficult. I also, I have a lot of people, I know a lot of people and a lot of blacksmiths who do crazy nice Damascus work. One, actually, you were in Olching last year, Keith, right?
Yeah.
Did you see the Italian guy Moreno Damasco?
I might have. Was this a specific Damascus pattern that he made?
No. Yeah, well, he's really a Damascus artist. He makes little flowers into his blades and has really a unique style that I've never seen from American makers or something. And he also has he makes those really chunky outdoor knives and this really, really thick dagger. It's definitely worth checking out. He's amazing. He has a really, really, really great understanding of how to move material to create certain patterns and forms.
I'll have to check that out next year. Yeah, I've been there the last 3-4 years or so.
Yes. It's always the people who are part of the Messerarbeitskreis. They always are allowed to exhibit, so we don't have to apply because it's like the show.
It's pretty much invitation only.
I think you can apply. You can apply to exhibit, but then you're like an external exhibitor, and we are like internal exhibitors because it's also kind of a club. There are people who are members, and those don't have to pay, for example. So they're just part of the club, and the club is the host of the venue of the Messertage, and so they are there almost every year unless somebody really can't come. There are changing other exhibitors who can apply, but also if somebody if we think somebody really should come, then we invite them. So it's basically also there are a lot of people who come every year and exhibit there.
2024 they had Sheer Knives was there, and I think he didn't even apply. One of the people in charge came to his table, said they were going to send a few guys over to look at his knives, and they came over and came back. It took about 10 minutes, and they asked him to be part of the club. So they really liked his work.
Those were from the Gilde, from DMG, Deutsche Messermacher Gilde.
Okay.
It's like
that's separate.
It's separate. Yes, the MRK is from Bavaria and South Germany, and also some Austrian guys. And the Gilde is like it's whole Germany, but also people there are also French and Ukrainian and also Italian people joining the Gilde. It's like you can think about the MRK is something a little bit more local, whereas the Gilde is more of the German counterpart to what the ABS is in America.
Okay.
So it's like they also have like a quality control if you want to apply.
Mm-hmm.
And but I think I confused something here. Being part of the Messertage and exhibiting there does not require you to be a member of anything. You just have to make nice knives and say, hey, I want to exhibit. Or somebody from the MRK comes to you and says, hey, you should exhibit at the show, and this is how it comes about. So everything's about communication.
And I think they had those newer people exhibiting upstairs. There was, I don't know how many tables they have, 6 or 8 tables for the new guys to come.
Yeah, a lot of very, very talented people.
Yeah.
And actually, I really I really grew good friends with a lot of them because we also have monthly meetups where we discuss knife topics, and we do have a Discord server, and it's really a nice exchange. And Mark, he's Bud Forge on Insta.
Yeah.
He's very, very active and also really, really talented. It's really, really nice to have such a lot of people who are sharing and showing their quality work, and it definitely helped me improve my quality of work when I got to be a member there and applied. It was like 3 or 4 years back, and they really did a lot of very constructive critiquing of my work. And I think this is what every young knife maker could wish for, the most everybody could wish for, to have somebody really tell you the truth about what they think, the positives as the negatives. And this is really, really valuable.
Yeah, Mark's a great guy. He's always willing to share any information that he's got for you.
There's not a lot of protectionism of knowledge.
Which is, I think, I mean, I'm not trying to say he's old, but for an older guy, that's not very common. Those older makers, a lot of them don't want to share anything with you.
Yes. It's
It's good.
I definitely met people from this generation who were not willing to share and were really rude, and I was kind of pissed and never talked to them again.
Yeah.
But this is what it gets you. I mean, if you're a kind guy and you're willing to share, then also it creates a lot of interest in the community, and I think this is really something very positive.
I think there's more of a shift to that. I think between the older and the younger generation, where the younger generation is more open and willing to share, and I think that their younger people are getting a name really quickly because of that.
Yeah, but also, this year in Olching, I saw the works of Toma Fenes, and he's 19 years old from Romania, and he has those, he makes those really, really elaborately decorative pieces, also very Japanese inspired from his working techniques. And, well, I think he's 19. I mean, when did he learn this? He had to start really, really early, and he became really, really good really fast, basically. Yeah. And I think when you're an older maker, and you have developed your style and you have a solid customer base, and then somehow a lot of people who are like, you grew up with the internet, they come along and do work with techniques that are really almost unknown, because I mean, all of those Japanese techniques, they really only spread over the internet. You had to be a really knowledgeable person before that to learn about this in depth and how to do it, or you had to go there to learn from somebody who's actually doing it, and all of the knowledge is so available at the moment. I don't really think that protectionism in any way helps anybody out.
Yeah, like you said before, you'd have to know somebody and get comfortable with them enough for them to invite you to their shop and to teach you those techniques.
Yes, yeah. And now you can just watch a video of Kyle Royer where he explains for 1 hour how to do a gold inlay, and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I could do it too if I had those fancy tools. But it's a lie. It's really, really hard.
He's an amazing knife maker, but he is so like very hyper and so into what he's doing. I had Martin Huber met him a few times and talked with him, and I'm like, is he really like that in person, or is that part of the YouTube? But he's like, he's probably a little bit too much for me. I don't know if I could have a conversation with him, because he's super like over exaggerated, enthusiastic about everything that he does. He's an awesome knife maker, incredible knife maker.
Yeah, but it's just, I mean, you have to think what it takes for somebody to really go out there and make those YouTube videos. You have to be somewhat of an outgoing persona to do it in the first place, because otherwise I think it just is too yeah, somebody who's really introverted wouldn't do it, I think.
Yeah.
And he really brings a lot of good vibes to this community, I think, and also a lot of knowledge. I really enjoy watching his content if I got the time.
Yeah, I think he does some online courses too. Those are probably, I don't know how much they cost, but I'm sure you could definitely step up your game.
A few hundred bucks for a course. But I don't want to really copy. I know that if you take the course, you don't have to copy his work or his techniques or something. But I think a lot of what I do really comes somehow from just the surroundings that I do it in. So I don't use a tool that I don't have. I just, and sometimes I take up a tool in my workshop and do anything with it, and I'm like, oh man, this looks kind of cool, and then I incorporate it into a knife. For example, I did for the Klingen for Gutes knife, I had a really, really dull carbide burr in a Dremel tool, and I actually on another knife I slipped, and it made like this funny mark in the steel, and I think, well, that looks kind of interesting. It's not like a very fine or very, very refined look, but it has something to it. And then I took this really, really old burr in the Dremel, and after I rounded out the spine and the choil area of the integral knife blade I forged, I put all of this texture on it with the Dremel tool, and after that I heat treated the blade, and I left the heat treatment oxides in the low spots, and it actually made a really interesting effect. It's not something that I would use on every knife that I make, but I think this is somehow interesting, yeah. And it's not that I want to buy all of the really fancy, expensive machines just to produce after that a knife that I saw somebody else make. Basically.
Yeah, you got to work with what you have for tools, and that shows in people's knife making styles for sure.
Yes, or just expand in the direction that you just feel comfortable at, and yeah, this is so for me. This rolling mill thing, this was rather spontaneous idea actually, but I somehow just felt that I really, really wanted to own it. And then I decided, okay, if I make enough money with just selling knives till the end of the year, then I'm going to commission Oliver to build it. And then I got lucky with some customers who were really into my work. And I sold also some knives that that actually were not new, and I already had built like a year or 2 years ago. And then I had the money together, and I was like, okay, now I'm doing it. This was somehow just really, I was lucky, basically.
Well, we got I don't know if you know this already, Chris, but we have a Patreon page going on, and we got some subscribers, and we haven't shouted them out in a couple of episodes. So I'm going to take the opportunity to thank all of Patreon supporters. If there's any listeners out there who enjoy the podcast and want to help us keep it going, you can find us on patreon.com under WFI Europe Podcast. We have Chris Stiegler from Kanji Knives, Sven from Nord Artisan. We have Johan Fagerlund from Fagerlund Bladesmith, Travis Haynes from Bird Forge, the maker of Pelican Paste, Roy Rutten, Shada Sean, Paul Balletta from Balletta Handmaids, Mr. Coy Baker from Baker Forge and Tools, Alex Greenaway from Tretton Knives, Cardoso Knives, Bob Workman from The Shoe Shed, Richard Schultz, Mr. Fingal Ferguson, he's getting a kick-ass power hammer soon from Albert, Oliver Tobin from Tobin Machines, Cochrane Knives, Jan Bicker, Luke Johnson from Crafterman Forge, Ryan Chadbourne from the Hustle and Grind podcast, and Brian Hunt from Hidden Roads Forge. And that's it for now. But hopefully we get some new ones this year so we can get some equipment.
Yeah, we should just take Matt's equipment, right? Because it doesn't need it anymore.
Yeah, maybe Chris could join us for a third host. It's a pretty good informative episode, I think.
Yeah,
we get to talk about knives.
Well,
yeah, for once.
This was one of my major New Year's. How do you say it?
Resolutions, right?
Exactly. I want to take more about knives because I'm not doing it enough already. Yeah, but since you're mentioning it, I also if I don't know if the guests usually have the opportunity to shout somebody out, but if I have the opportunity, I would really appreciate it for all of the listeners if they checked out the MRK stuff. It's MRK Olching on Instagram, and we do the knife show twice a year, one in April and one in October. And I think they're really nice events for the community. So if you're in the area or interested, it's really nice. And yeah, also a lot of great knife makers. But I think it would be too much if I if I started. I couldn't stop. But, yeah.
And Olching is in Germany for all of our
yes.
other listeners, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, it's in Germany, near Munich, in Bavaria. Yes.
Well, I'll be there this year. Albert's going to make some time, right? You're going to show up? I don't know if you've been to that show before, have you?
I haven't. No. When is it?
It's in October. Usually it's the second weekend in October.
Okay. So right before Knife then.
Yes. Actually, there was a little bit of a confusion because we were worried that the knife would take place on the same weekend, but there were some coordinations done, and now we got I think it's 2 weeks later now. The first is Olching, and 2 weeks later is the knife. So
okay.
The people who want to exhibit on both shows, there are actually a lot of people who usually go to both shows. They have a little bit of time to recover in between. This is really not just because of the alcohol, but also because of the driving and stuff.
Yeah.
And Derek's usually there outside. Derek Wolf with his. If you hear, just listen for the loudest amble you've ever heard in your life. That's him.
Yes. You really should do something about it. Yeah. He actually lives really close to me in Garmisch. I always pass his workshop when I go home to Germany or when I drive to Munich,
Okay.
I visited him there, and it's really he's a really great guy, and
Yeah.
I think he's the man with the single most he has the most unfinished Bowie knife blades in his workshop that I've ever seen. he has so many Bowie knife blades. It's insane. I really maybe he should finish one soon.
Or two, yeah.
Or
I've
two,
never
yeah.
been there. He invited me to stop by. He's a great guy, super knowledgeable, kind of quiet. We tried to get him on the podcast here, but he says that's not his thing. I'm still working on it though. Maybe we'll get him on.
Oh man, Derek. Yeah. Yeah, he's really we always have in the summer we have like a hammer in, like a little hammer in. Just last year we were like between 15 and 20 people max. And Derek he joined and he came across and everybody started forging. And he was just there, sitting there reading a book, and he was not. He was really enjoying it and the atmosphere and everything, but he did not need to forge something on this day. I really admire his skills when he does forge. In Olching, he forged those Bowie blades to shape, like really accurately. This is really something that I admire about his work, because I know he does not just forge out like a pedal of Damascus and then cuts out the shape of the knife, but he really does.
Yeah.
He does the forging.
Or just
He does
the finish.
work on the anvil, and this is really cool.
Nice. Well, we are hitting the 1.5 hour mark. I think we got a show. What do you guys think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really good.
I hope I did not spread too much misinformation during this, so just tell me.
That was good. I enjoyed the talk about all the stones. And if you have anything you want to promote, Chris, your website, where can people find you? Get a hold of your knives if you have any available.
Well, I do have a website. It's wildworld.de with 3 W's. www.ild world. And you when you introduced me, you said Wildworks. So I sadly have to correct it, but for the website it actually is important. And on Instagram it's also Wild World. And I have a web shop linked in my Instagram bio, so if some people cannot find the website, it's linked over there. And I do have a few knives available, but not that many at the moment. Yeah, actually, I wanted to change my my Instagram name to Wildworks once because I created the account before I made knives, but Wildworks was already taken, and I did not want to butcher it around with like dots and numbers, so I just left it.
Thanks for joining us. It was a really good conversation. Maybe we'll get you back on again if you're interested.
I'm really thankful to have the opportunity, and it was a really nice talk with you. Thanks a lot, and maybe in like Johan Nippenberg said, 1 year in the future, it seems to be a good. It seems to be a good time to make something again. I'd be really happy to talk with you again. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. All right, guys. We'll talk to you again next week. Bye.
Bye.